Welcome to Global View. Today we have a special guest, Sam Faddis, who has decades of experience in counterterrorism and intelligence operation. He's an author and is national intelligence expert. Thank you for joining the show, Sam. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sam, I have a first question for you. That you're an expert in intelligence, and I would like to understand today, what would you consider the biggest threat to the United States of America? It's coming from abroad or from within?
Wow. Well, I mean, there are plenty of threats. So, right, it's hard to prioritize. I mean, look, long term, strategically, existentially, I hate that word because it gets overused, but I think it's appropriate. China, without question, right? I mean, the Chinese want to supplant us. And obviously, anytime I say something like the Chinese, I'm not talking about the Chinese people. I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party and the government. They want to supplant us as the dominant power or leading power on the planet. And they're very serious about it, and they're making great strides. So that would be number one. But I mean, after that, we have all kinds of threats. I mean, we certainly have threats internally, right? Not just, I mean, from the Chinese, but also, well, right now, as we're talking, from the Iranians, but all sorts of Islamic extremist organizations. So no shortage of bad guys out there.
So do you think that the Chinese could use the Islamic extremists to wage some sort of war indirectly against us? Or do you see these completely disparate?
No, I don't think we should look at this as, these guys all operate independently, right? I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about these days about the Red-Green Alliance, by which they mean communists and radical Islamists. I mean, jihadists maybe is the best word. Okay, if you really delve into the ideology of those two things that I just laid out, they're about as incompatible as you can be. I mean, one basically, communism says there is no God and there shouldn't be a religion. And the other is absolutely dedicated to the proposition that their religion is everything, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't stop them from, in the meantime, agreeing that we're a common enemy and they want to destroy us. Now, assuming they ever won, I guess they get to fight it out over our dead bodies, right? Over which vision survives, but it doesn't change the fact that in the meantime, 100% they will work together. And that really shouldn't surprise us. I mean, countries do that all the time. I mean, look, we made common cause with the Soviet Union in World War II. Stalin was our ally in World War II. That's about as big a gap as you can imagine. And yet we said, look, we'll worry about the Soviets later. First, we got to take care of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. So you would think they're incompatible. They're not. They will work together, sure.
Well, when it comes to the threat of Islamic ideologies, as someone who comes from Europe, I've experienced what it means for safety, cultural non-integration, this invasion of Islamic culture. So it's kind of funny to see how most of the European allies are not aligned with Trump fighting the Islamic threat right now. So what do you think about the position of certain allies, including Italy, right now is withdrawing support to President Trump? Why they're doing that when they have at home this risk developed?
Well, look, I mean, try to break my response into two pieces. I mean, one is that I think in general, the Western Europe and the United States, most Americans don't appreciate the threat from jihadism, Islamic extremism, right? I mean, we're raised in a culture where it's all about tolerance. You're a Catholic, I'm a Protestant, he's a Jew, nobody cares. Because the society is secular and your faith is your own thing. You live your life and you can respect that. So the concept that you're dealing with people who don't think that way at all, Islamic extremists, jihadists, they're not seeking tolerance. They're not seeking to go along, to get along, to coexist. I mean, there's only one possible outcome for them. You either submit or you're eliminated, right, in the end. They win, you lose. I think most Western nations are still struggling with that concept to understand it. It's pretty simple, but it's like they don't want to understand it. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to face it. They keep treating this as a matter of tolerance when you're dealing with people who for whom there is no tolerance, right? On the issue of NATO, look, I would say this. I think we have to have realistic expectations about NATO. NATO was formed as an alliance back when the line of confrontation between us and the Soviets ran through the middle of what's now a united Germany. And we were hoping that we could keep the Russians out of Paris for longer than 72 hours, right? It was desperate days, let's band together, all against a common cause. The threat was very clear. Okay, well, that threat, I won't say the Russians have gone away. That's not what I'm saying. But that line of confrontation is now what? 800 miles, maybe 1,000 miles east. I mean, the line of confrontation is the Polish-Russian border, maybe. And NATO has all of the old Warsaw Pact basically is in NATO, plus a bunch of other folks. And the threat, so we are in a totally different time, and it's a totally different entity. And the expectation that some Americans have that NATO will just automatically show up to do whatever we want is unrealistic. Now, I'm not excusing them, because frankly, they drive me crazy most of the time. I mean, look, when the Bosnian Muslims were being slaughtered, who the heck stopped the genocide? I mean, It was on Europe's doorstep, and it took the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force to go to Bosnia to end it. So they talk a lot, and they rarely do anything. So I'm not suggesting that means we should scrap NATO. It's just we got to understand going forward, there are going to be limitations to what these guys are going to do. And and there should be implications on our side. I mean, after this whole thing with Iran, it's like, okay, guys, I mean, we got bases on your territory and you assume we're going to show up automatically when you're threatened. But you didn't show up for us. So we need to talk about that going forward.
Well, the president made a very interesting statement about NATO and how some countries were helpful in this conflict with Iran, others were not, like you just stated. He mentioned countries like Greece and Romania, which actually basically were even more important than countries like Germany or Poland or some of these other traditional NATO countries. So do you see a new, like basically a two-tiered NATO system emerging where the United States redeploys assets and troops maybe to the southeastern Mediterranean region, Southern Europe, versus traditional areas like Ramstein in Germany and the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be as stark as like we just completely vacate certain areas and shift everything. But I think that will happen, is happening, and it makes sense to me. I mean, look, I'm not Greek. I've spent a lot of time in Greece, and I've spent a lot of time in Cyprus and bumped around. Okay. I mean, let's be blunt. The Greeks get it, right? I mean, I can remember, I use this story all the time. I was sitting in Cyprus more years ago than I'd like to remember, and I was meeting with an asset of ours who was a former Cypriot general, very senior guy. He had worked with the United States and cooperated with us. And I remember him looking at me. It was a very relaxed atmosphere. We were having dinner at a restaurant. This is not some like meeting at 2:00 in the morning in a back alley kind of thing. And he's talking to me, and I'm a relatively young guy, and I'm trying to figure out which way's up in the region. And at some point in the dinner, he looked at me and he said, basically, the problem with you guys is you think that Islam went away after the Battle of Lepanto in 1570 or whatever that was. And, they didn't go away, and the threat's still here. Of course, he's sitting on an island that at that point still is what, about a third of its landmass is under Turkish occupation, right? So he knows of what he speaks. And I can tell you, I mean, I'll be blunt. My reaction at the time was, wow, you're kind of a crazy old man, aren't you? Like, I mean, I didn't say that to the man. I wasn't rude, but my reaction was, what I'm thinking is, okay, crazy old guy. Yeah, we're talking about a battle that happened, 400 plus years ago. I think about that a lot, because it's one of those conversations you replay in your head and you realize the general knew what the hell he was talking about. It was me that hadn't quite clued into what the heck was going on. So yeah, I agree with your thesis. I think that's exactly what you're going to see. When we're lining up against the threats we're lined up against now, we're seeing who our friends are and who's not showing up to the party to help us.
Yeah, and you could simply go to a soccer match in any of these countries, and they're really echoing chants from the Byzantine era. You go to a game between Greece and Turkey today, they're talking about the Ottomans versus the Byzantines versus we're talking about 2026. So it's pretty fast.
Well, look, I mean, but when I lived in Athens for a while. Written on the wall across the street from my house in spray paint. So this is graffiti. It says, rough translation into English, Constantinople is the capital of Greece now and for forever.
Yeah.
That's what it said. So that was what was on the mind of some 15-year-old kid with a can of spray paint, not his gang sign or anything else. He's talking about the fall of Constantinople in 1453. That's when it's not forgotten. It didn't go away, right? It's there. Most Americans tell them, start talking about Constantinople, they have not the slightest clue what the hell you're talking about. But everybody in Greece will know exactly what you're talking about. And try walking around Athens and using the word Istanbul instead of Constantinople. Somebody will remind you very quickly, we don't use that word.
It's true.
True. Old countries and old stories, right? So everybody seems to be in the loop with what happened centuries ago. But
Yep.
so is Iran, no? Iranian are showing an enormous proud, right? To be Iranian, to fight whatever they can fight, despite they have the biggest superpowers militarily against them. How do you see this conflict developing in the future? Because they are showing, honestly, they're giving us hell. I mean, it's not really, it's not really easy as I thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, to bootstrap off of the fact that we were just talking about Greece, I mean, look, when the Greeks talk about, the saving Western civilization, what are they talking about? They're talking about Thermopylae, they're talking about Salamis, they're talking about Marathon. Who the heck were all those battles against? They were against the Persians. That's the Iranians. That's who we're talking about. These guys have been around for a long time, and they're no joke. I mean, the reason all those battles of the Greeks were so epic is because by any reasonable estimation, they should have been squashed because the Persians were the superpower of the age, right? This was not, this is the emperor coming, the God King coming with an army that took days to cross the bridge they put across the straits where Constantinople subsequently was built. So these guys have been around for a long time. Look, I've worked against the Iranians. I worked against them in the field for a long time, face to face with them. I mean, I've been in the room with IRGC guys and God knows how many of their intel guys and guys inside their nuclear program and all of that. They are no joke. They are brutal as hell.
Yeah.
But they're also really smart and really organized. I mean, when I was working against them and the Iraqis, roughly the same time frame for a while, the Iranians were much more dangerous. I mean, the Iraqis were really brutal and no limit to the amount of violence they would use. So if you didn't have your act together, people are going to get killed and they're going to die horribly. But they're kind of sloppy and inefficient most of the time. Things were a little scattered. the Iranians were never like that. The Iranians were really organized, really clever, thinking many steps ahead. I never lost an asset to the Iranians, thank God. But I know a lot of guys who did. I mean, the attrition rate of sources we were running against the Iranians at certain points was like 50% a year. And when they caught you, well, if they caught you, you hoped that you died in the process of them catching you, because
Wow.
we don't want to go into those details, but you don't want them to take you alive, because you will die, but they will make sure it takes a really long time for you to die. So in any event, whoever led us to believe that we were going to decapitate the Iranian regime, strike them, and they were going to fold up like a house of cards. I mean, there are all sorts of theories as to exactly the different players that pushed that narrative. Certainly, I think the Israelis did, but I'm not convinced it was just the Israelis. Either didn't know anything about the Iranians,
Mhm.
or was deliberately lying because they wanted us to jump, because that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
So now that we're into it, I mean, what I keep saying is, okay, we're in it now. Honestly, if I was advising the president when he made the decision about this, I would have said, don't do this. And if he said, well, we're going to do it anyway, I would have said, well, then don't do it this way, because this ain't going to work. But we've jumped now. We're in a war, and you can't kind of just quit and walk away. I mean, you can, but I don't think you want to deal with the consequences of leaving the Middle East with the Iranians having won the war. So what I basically say is, okay, you're in it now, and they're serious, and they are going to fight, and they are committed, and you're going to have to. There's going to have to be considerably more pressure before these guys seriously negotiate. I do not believe they're getting ready to fold up and quit. Now, I will be the happiest guy in the world if, 15 minutes from now we hear that they have done that, but I don't think I think you're going to have to really turn up the heat on them before they cave.
Well, Sam, what does folding up look like to you on the Iranian side? Because we just had the peace talks that apparently collapsed in Pakistan, and now the president is sending naval ships to, I guess, block the Strait of Hormuz, even though he wanted it open. Can you kind of explain what's going on with the collapse in the peace talks, him wanting the Strait of Hormuz open, but now sending ships to blockade it?
So this is the way I look at it. I mean, just to try to make a murky situation as black and white as I can.
Yeah.
Before we went to Islamabad, they issued their 10 points that they wanted to. Okay, that was a surrender document with us surrendering. So I don't think we should ever gone to Islamabad, because I think when somebody basically gives you the finger and slaps you in the face and says, I want you to quit and acknowledge that we won, I think the response ought to be, well, you can go to hell. I don't think we should have gone. Okay, in any event, that happened. We left. Why did they do that? Because they don't think they're losing, right? I mean, we're beating the hell out of them in a conventional sense, but they're holding the world economy hostage, not just with the straits, by threatening to take down all oil and gas production in the Persian Gulf, by threatening to kill all of the desalination plants in the Gulf, which means 100 million people die of thirst, right? That's their response. Their response is, we're not going to sail out and try to sink your aircraft carrier. We can't do that. We can kill 100 million people by taking away their fresh water, and we can torch all of the oil and gas industry, and nobody has any idea how many years or billions of dollars it'll take to put that back online. Okay, so I think the blockade is a good first step. I don't think it's enough, frankly. Again, I'd be happy to be proved wrong. I think you're going to have, they have land borders with a whole bunch of bordering countries. So we ought to be pressuring every one of those countries to seal those land borders right now. They've still got aircraft flying in and out of Tehran and other airports. If we're blockading the Straits of Hormuz, we ought to be cutting off all air travel in and out of Iran. They have tens and tens of billions of dollars parked in banks all around the world. It's all frozen, but they keep fantasizing they're going to get it back. I would take it all right now, take all of their money, seal their whole country off. And then we have to figure out how to stop them from hitting targets in the Gulf with these drones. I mean, hunting their missiles is one thing, but they can build the stupid drones in a garage. It's a motorcycle engine and it's a fiberglass. If you can work on a motorcycle and you've ever worked on a fiberglass boat, you have the technical expertise necessary to build a Shahed drone. So it doesn't matter how many they had at the beginning of the war. They can build them as fast as they're launching them, probably. So, I would get the Ukrainians to the Gulf in a hurry, since they're the world's experts at this point on drone defense, and give them whatever cash they need to set up the kind of defenses they have set up in Ukraine. Because it's not just we got to be able to shoot down their drones. We can't keep shooting down $5,000 drones with $3 million missiles, right? We got a lot of money. We don't have that much money. So we got to figure out the cheaper, more cost-effective, and sustainable methodologies. Anyway, I mean, all of these things together. And look, we have to be anticipating their next moves. I mean, they argue over who actually invented chess, whether it was the Indians or the Iranians. But chess is, historically is famed as a game played by the Persians, right? This whole concept of chess playing. So we got to start thinking in that sense moves ahead. They already hit the Saudis are pumping oil out to the west side into the Red Sea and taking it out from the port of Yanbu, and that's their get around over the whole issue in the Gulf. Well, the Iranians already hit that pipeline once. It's been repaired. I would expect at any point for them to hit it again, but hit it in 3 or 4 different places. The Houthis are not in the game yet because in the Red Sea, so tankers are getting out there. And that's basically because the Saudis pay them off. Saudis give them billions of dollars, right? But that could change. I mean, you're talking about pirates, and they're taking protection money, so expecting them to keep their word forever is kind of silly, right? I mean, at some point, at any point, they could just stab you in the back, and then you have that. Anyway, a lot more pressure, and we got to start getting ahead of the game here, not being reactive. In terms of what we're looking for, I don't think at this point we ought to be talking about regime change unless you're going to go crazy and invade Iran, which I would never recommend. But I think you could realistically, I mean, at this point, I would be telling them, you're going to give up your entire nuclear program and you're going to give us all the highly enriched uranium you have, and you're going to shut down your ballistic missile program. We're taking those pieces completely off the board. You guys can stay there, but we're not debating how much you can enrich or for how long you can enrich. We're wiping the slate clean of these things because these are threats. I think I answered your question there somewhere along the way as I was reading.
You absolutely did. Thank you.
And one other question: do you think one agreement that you just mentioned, eventually reached on enrichment of uranium, can we trust they will keep up with this agreement, or because we had a recent attack that led nowhere, and here we are again with a new conflict? Will we need to eradicate the problem with the ground troops, or we can hope negotiation will work? And if yes, can we trust?
Okay, well, in reverse order, I certainly don't think we should invade Iran and put troops in the ground. If you're going to invade Iran and you're going to put troops in the ground, you don't just need the whole U.S. Army, you need a bigger army. You're going to have to increase the size of the army to produce the number of troops. I mean, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of men that it will take to do that. There's no way. And by the way, it's politically unsustainable in the United States. If you want to see the American people stand up and bring this to a screeching halt, just try to do that. Nobody will go along with it. Trust. I always my gears lock up in my head when somebody asks an old CIA guy about trust, because we don't think in those terms. There's no, the answer, should we trust them? The answer is always no. I mean,
Always.
you don't trust anybody. There's what we can verify and confirm, but there's no such thing as I have faith in these people, I believe them, I trust them. What do I assume? They'll do whatever they can get away with, and they'll stab me in the back. I mean, you don't stay alive on the street by trusting anybody. It's all about control. So once we sign an agreement, you absolutely then need to, at the same time, be figuring out, so how are we going to confirm that they don't cheat on this?
Yeah.
And the first thing we need is one hell of a lot better collection by the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
Right? We got it, because I don't look, the number one thing CIA is supposed to collect on, right, is the stuff that satellites and eavesdropping can't give you. It's what's inside people's heads. I can see a picture of an army, but I don't know if Putin's just bluffing or he's going to come across the border tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The only person that can tell me that is a spy next to Putin in his inner circle who tells me that. Okay, so we started this war clearly with a completely false understanding of how what the Iranian intention was, how they would react, and how they would stand up to our attack. We started a war believing that it was going to be over in a week. Or actually, the president said on camera a week or so ago, he predicted 3 days. Okay. That tells you right there, we didn't have any intelligence worth a damn at the top levels, right? I mean, whoever told us that, the Israelis and whoever else, I don't know if they were wrong. I don't know if they were deliberately lying. All I know is we clearly didn't know. So that gives you an idea that our collection is terrible. We don't have the sources we need to have. And if you're going to reach an end to this war and then you're going to predicate everything on being able to track how they're behaving, well, you better change that. I mean, it's not easy recruiting sources inside Iran, but it's not impossible either. It's certainly been done. I recruited any number of Iranian assets, but it's not like I'm the only guy. I mean, that has been done. You be careful. Otherwise, you don't stay alive very long, or your assets don't stay alive very long. But it is possible, and it would be critical. So it would not be a matter of trusting them to agree to it, to abide by it. It's a matter of understanding, okay, let's confirm where we are now, and then put in place the collection we need so we never end up blindsided by anything they do.
Sam, I have a last question for you. Yeah. I want to talk about the Chinese dragon in the room that is very important, I think, to this conversation. Yes. And to where this entire situation is going in the U.S. footprint in the Middle East and around the world at this point. China obviously has hundreds of billions of dollars invested in Iran, yes. Pipelines, energy deals, fisheries, you name it, they're there, railroads. Yes. What's China thinking during this process, and how are they going to impact the peace talks and where we go with Iran moving forward?
Well, I mean, the Chinese, I agree with everything you just said. But the Chinese are going to look at this in a very cold-blooded fashion, right? Mm-hmm. They're not allies with the Iranians because they're great guys or they really I mean, it's just to their benefit. They're making money, but they're also advancing their strategic interests, and it's a pain in our butt. It's a way of leveraging. I don't want to be silly, but I mean, in other words, there are all kinds of angles here. It hurts us. It helps them. They make cash. It advances their worldwide agenda. Mm-hmm. At the same time, they're going to balance all of that against all their other interests every place else. Like, unless you're really ready to throw down completely with the United States and start a war with the United States of America, You don't want to push us too far if you're in Beijing. So they're going to make that kind of calculus the whole time, really cold-blooded. Like let's try to work against the Americans to the extent we can and limit the damage to the Iranians. But by the same token, anytime it gets jammed up and it's going to hurt them too much, they'll sell the Iranians out in a heartbeat. They'll take that long term. It's not like they're blood brothers or anything. Mm-hmm. So if I were the president, obviously I'm not, I wouldn't go to Beijing right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I assume he's going, I think he's still going, or we've rescheduled now. And obviously he thinks he can handle that meeting. I wouldn't go right now. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't talk to the Chinese. We have 1 million points of contact with the Chinese. He doesn't need to be there to do that. I'd let them sweat for a while we turn up the heat on the Iranians and use that as the methodology for pressuring them.
There was an extremely insightful conversation. Thank you so much for your time. It was really, really fascinating to hear your perspective with your experience and your knowledge. Where people can find you to keep up with this information? Yeah,
the best place to find me is to go to Substack, AND Magazine, andmagazine.substack.com. I'm on Twitter and Getter and every place else is Real Sam Faddis, but And Magazine will take you there.